What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Pete.
And we are coming to you live from a couple of places on the internet. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, maybe Instagram. I just checked it out. Seems like it's going weird if it's not on Instagram. I can't do anything about it, Pete. But maybe you're listening later wherever you get your podcasts. It's all good. And we are celebrating here tonight on the podcast because it's Justin's birthday, our third co-host.
Happy birthday, JT says. Yeah.
Justin, any words you want to say?
Anything you want to say?
Anything you want to say?
What?
Do you want to say anything, Justin?
It turns out on his birthday, he doesn't want to do the show.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, weird. He wants to celebrate with his family or something?
I don't know. My birthday is going to be on the show this year as well. I guess we'll see who's the better co-host.
Oh, man. Shots fired already.
Yes, absolutely. We have a packed show. Speaking of shots, we got at least 3 in the chamber, Pete.
Whoa. Let's take that down a notch. We have some amazing guests, is what you're trying to say.
Yes, that is what I'm trying to say. Why don't we bring in our first guest here? He is the creator of a bunch of stuff, but the two things we're going to be talking about are Toxic Avenger from Ahoy Comics and Justice Warriors Vote Harder, also from Ahoy Comics. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Bors. Matt, hello.
Hey, welcome.
What's happening? Thanks for having me back. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for coming back. I love these books. I want to work in, for no particular reason. Actually, let's work in reverse date release order.
What?
Okay.
Yeah.
You're getting crazy in your old age.
I know. Well, let's talk about Toxic Avenger first. This just came out a couple of weeks ago. This is obviously based on the Troma films, but I say this without throwing myself under the bus immediately. I'm not a big Troma guy. Like, I think I saw Tromeo and Juliet back in the day, and I certainly am familiar with Toxic Avenger. So I wasn't inherently sold on this book, but I loved it. And one of the reasons that I loved it, beyond it being funny and definitely getting that sense of what I've seen from Troma, is the structure you did in there was so fascinating, the way that you put together the book. And just to mention it very quickly for our listeners, it sort of like follows 2 time periods. One's going forward, one's going reverse, and they sort of meet in the middle a little bit is maybe a way of describing it. But how did you hit on that? How did you hit on sort of that idea to structure the first issue that way?
Well, so first, most people I think aren't hardcore Troma people, right? That's a very small niche, and I had to do a comic book a little differently than the Troma movies, which are sort of infamously low budget and everything. And I'm combining elements of the Toxic Crusaders cartoon, if anyone's familiar with that.
Oh yeah, nice.
So it's a new thing, but it should feel familiar to people who are familiar with the Toxic Avenger, but you don't have to be at all. And to answer your question, there's sort of a reverse chronology to the storytelling, because it starts out with the new premise, which is similar, but my own spin on it is like there's been a train derailment of toxic waste. It's similar to what happened to Palestine, Ohio, except no teenagers got mutated, I don't think.
That we know of yet.
Yeah. So I wanted, I have to retell the origin, and even if you're not familiar with the Toxic Avenger, origin stories, especially in like superhero comic type stuff, feels very familiar. I mean, the Toxic Avenger is ultimately kind of a parody of a lot of superhero origins that came out of like the Atomic Age, right? Spider-Man, Hulk, radioactivity thing goes wrong, except he doesn't come out looking great. He comes out looking like a monster. So with a number 1 issue and how important it is, you only have one shot to really impress people, especially people that aren't like hardcore fans. So I wanted to try to do something interesting. And the point of going backwards in time, besides, isn't just to be a gimmick. It's to throw you into the story immediately. That's like the 4th day of quarantine. You don't really know everything that's going on. And the characters don't really know everything that's going on because there's still unanswered questions. So as you go backward in time towards the inciting event, you get a picture of what we're talking about. And what that allows you to do is kind of front load it with Toxic Avenger already exists. Mm-hmm. And then you work backwards to see how he got to be that way, which I thought was interesting, and I'm glad to hear other people did.
No, I thought it was great. It was really surprising, and it worked very well because, like you're saying, it presents what otherwise could be a very straightforward narrative, but hits you with sort of an emotional gut punch at the end as well, because you've been following this in two very different directions. Um, I wanted to ask you though, and you touched on this a little bit, but this is very much a product of like the 80s. Like we were very worried about toxic waste mills in the 1980s.
Sure
I mean,
were.
obviously we should still be worried about them, I think, just in general, as a general thing. But what makes this relevant for today? How do you update this?
Yeah, I think, Toxic Avenger wasn't explicitly done to like make an environmental message or anything, but it clearly comes out of that age where the prevailing issues were like nuclear meltdowns, radioactive waste. It was the era of smog. And things are a little different these days. Better in some ways, worse in others. Like we got rid of the smog and the cigarette butts on the street, and we are dealing with climate change. So I'm dealing with explicit toxic waste, but I guess the overarching sort of theme of this is corporate control and corporate polluters. Their town is under quarantine by this corporation called Biohazard Solutions, and they're not on the up and up. In fact, I don't think it would be spoilery to say this nefarious corporation may even have had something to do with this spill.
Hot take.
So, that's one of the big themes, and then bullying, which is a constant throughout all the iterations of Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, for sure. I love the art. It's such a cool look to it. Talk a little bit about kind of like walking the line of the Toxic Avenger we know and love, and then kind of your own take. Like how are you kind of approaching that, or how are the guardrails on working on this project?
Yeah, it's a good question. I didn't have Troma has been real supportive. They weren't precious about it or giving me a lot of notes or anything like that. And I mentioned the Toxic Crusaders. You think the Toxic Avenger, the first one, comes out in 1984. It's a schlocky, violent, sometimes offensive, intentionally low budget. It's not aspiring to be great art. It's very in your face. And then a couple years later, in 1991, they do a kids cartoon. So I feel like they've shown themselves willing to do different adaptations. This, like I said, it's kind of trying to merge them. I mean, the first issue, I will say, I saw a couple of people say, they thought maybe it could be more violent. And there's a reason it wasn't. One was we were just establishing the origin. There wasn't a lot of time to be ripping people apart. But the second issue comes out next month. It's a monster fight. It gets gruesome. You mentioned the art. Fred Harper is really good with this stuff. Yeah, and once we both started getting comfortable with each other and everything, I started throwing him grosser and grosser stuff to draw as this goes on.
I mean, I think I know the answer to this one, and this dovetails into Justice Warriors as well, but Ahoy seems to have gotten this incredible niche in terms of actual satire. What's it like working with them? And is there anything where you throw by them and they're like, we got to pull back on that a little bit?
No, not really. I mean, there's maybe a couple lines in Justice Warriors and Toxic Avenger where my editor has wanted me to reword them so, people don't get the wrong idea, but that's just sage editing advice, but nothing really we've been asked to hold back on or anything like that. They've been real supportive. I mean, that's why they're doing the Toxic Avenger, I think, is like I came to them with the idea because they published Justice Warriors, and that's like a little unusual for a licensed comic maybe, but I sort of went after it with a pitch, and I got Troma and Ahoy at the table together. Ahoy was my first choice. They hadn't done a licensed book before. If they weren't into it, I would have gone somewhere else and tried to make it happen, and I'm sure I could have. But Ahoy just seemed like the best fit, so I started with them.
Nice. Well, why did you go after that license then? Where did that spark start?
Well, I had been running the Nib for 10 years until last summer, and I did do the first volume of Justice Warriors when I was at the Nib, but that was about, all I could squeeze in. I was co-writing it, not drawing it. And as the Nib ended, I needed some other work, and I wanted some other work, specifically in comics. Like I was trying to like, what are some dream projects, stuff I can go after, and try to that I could do in my voice, and even if they aren't my characters, make a good iteration of them or do a good run. Right? They're not going to give me the big two books, maybe not yet, maybe, but. Toxic Avenger had been in my mind for a while, like maybe a couple years. Is just, oh, that's a cool character. I think I could do something with that. And surprisingly, no one had in comics for a really long time. And I just approached Lloyd Kaufman at San Diego Comic-Con last year, and I mean, I didn't pitch him right then and there on the floor, but I told him I had an idea and we should talk and stuff. And it just worked out kind of surprisingly easy for this type of thing.
Nice, working the floor. Love to hear stories like that.
It's exactly. It's like a Comic-Con, dream story. Just saw him, pitched him. Now there's a comic that exists.
Pretty impressive.
That's what I got to do. New York Comic Con's coming up. I'm just going to walk up to everybody and be like, my dream has always been to do fill in the blank. And see what happens. There's a lot of tables in art. I mean, I'll figure it out.
I figured, shoot my shot. I've shot other shots and not gotten anywhere. So this one just, yes, exactly. This one just happened to work out. I'll be in New York Comic Con, by the way, too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look out, man. You're going to be working the floor together.
All right. We're going to be at cross purposes.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. Somehow pitching the same thing. Why don't we talk about Justice Warriors? This came out back in the beginning of September, mid-September, something like that. Even if you haven't read the first Justice Warriors, I think you can jump right into this. And obviously, per the title, Justice Warriors Vote Harder is the name of it. It's pretty timely and talking about elections, getting into that. This is just an overall thing, but what is your take on elections? Like, not be like, who do you think should
and
win?
And how hard should I show up to the ballot box? Should I just be rocking like a flag?
I mean, you read something like this, and certainly you intuit things about what the creators want, but I was curious to hear from you.
Well, people listening to this, they don't even know the setup. So I don't know if
let's start there.
Well, I just want to say, like, my take on elections is sort of in the book. I mean, it's not explicitly like, oh, elections are good or elections are bad, or you should vote or you shouldn't vote. I mean, I think we all understand the arguments for voting. Most people agree with them. Some people don't. But it wasn't about that. And it wasn't about Trump or, at the time, Biden when we wrote it. It wasn't supposed to be specifically about that. It was supposed to be about excuse me, how elections, the choices, even if they're important, are often limited on purpose. The range of opinion that's allowed is limited by the nature of the system, whatever it is. In the U.S., it's a two-party system. And we have a third-party candidate in the uninhabited zone. That's where all the mutants live, that tries to get together and sort of form an insurgency populist campaign. And the characters in Justice Warriors, Swamp Cop in particular, is tasked with sort of infiltrating their movement, like COINTELPRO style. And, with the intention of undermining the movement. And then there's a mutant character named Fen, who's sort of a bog girl, opposite of Swamp Cop, who's an authentic, earnest activist, and who kind of becomes increasingly radicalized over the book by her frustration with the system. So I guess, what I want to hear from people is like their reactions, right? How it makes them feel, who they identify with, what they think of it. Because Justice Warriors is sort of, it's way over the top. We have, as you can see here, we have a shit cop and a swamp cop. I mean, it's stupid on a lot of levels, intentionally so, but we also, we put a lot of commentary in it. It's much of it not particularly subtle, frankly. I mean, it's it's sort of like a Judge Dredd, but even more cranked up. So, but I think there's some subtler things going on in it. There's the obvious jokes that we do on elections and the elite and the system and on police, but then there's sort of bigger themes that we're trying to get at too.
I mean, I think that comes through in it. And just to mention for anybody who is listening to the audio podcast, yeah, it is very broad. There's the shit cop, there's the swamp cop, there are creatures, and you're presenting these three candidates to, without getting too much into spoilers, who are essentially kind of the same thing or variations of the same thing, the two main big party candidates. And then the third party candidate, the outside one, is potentially even more destructive than both of them in certain ways. So, yeah, like you said, I think there's a lot you can take away from it. And I did appreciate how satirical it was without really passing judgment, which I think maybe the best satire does in a certain way.
Yeah, thanks. I like to hear that because it's not really supposed to be overt message satire in a way, which might sound weird because it does have a lot of obvious stuff in it. I don't think our point of view is particularly clouded, but the main characters are police. They're not the good guys. They're not sort of acting out how we want to see the world or, the change we want to see in the world. The book is most kind of about the frustrations of and all the impediments to get to major change in the world. So in that sense, there aren't characters that kind of tell you the meaning of the story through their words or through their actions, or maybe they do, but just in a roundabout way.
Yeah. How do you modulate that then as a writer? Because again, for anybody listening, you are not a computer, you're an actual person. So you have feelings that are going to come out through the writing. How do you make sure that you're not going too far in that direction then when you're trying to hit this tone that is very even-handed?
Yeah, well, I mean, good question. I don't know. I co-write it with Ben Clarkson, who's also the artist. And he's amazing. I'm real lucky to work with him. And I mean, I don't know how it just fits our sensibilities, I guess, like I like doing this kind of thing, which Toxic Avenger is not exactly the same thing, but it comes from the same school originally, like if I think about a lot of my influences back when I was a kid, RoboCop, it's ultra violent satires that kind of play it straight. Like there's a lot of people who just think it's a cool action movie, and there's a lot of people who think it has something to say. And Toxic Avenger is a lot less serious and maybe even has less to say, but there's stuff in there too. So I like kind of riding that line, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing it very successfully in both of these projects. Before we let you go, though, anything, obviously, these are two books that people can check out, but anything else you want to plug?
Well, those are the two big things that I'm working on. Although I guess I do have one more thing coming out next month. I have a story in Cruel Universe number 4 from Oni Press and EC Comics. Nice. I was excited to do that. I just wrote it. It also happens to be about elections. It will be timed. I don't know. I think it comes out like the day or two after the election. So I don't know if that will change how you feel about it or not. But
right. Yeah, either I'm going to have to read a lot of comics or I'm going to be reading no comics. So I guess we'll see what happens. One of the two. Nat, congratulations on both of the books. Looking forward to the Cruel Universe story as well. And good talking to you. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
There we go. Once again, that was Matt Bors. And the two books you should be checking out are Toxic Avenger from Ahoy Comics and Justice Warriors Vote Harder, also from Ahoy Comics. Both great, both fun. If you're, feeling antsy about politics stuff like a lot of us are, I think I certainly am. I read this. I loved it. I laughed. It's crazy, over the top action and fun at the same time as it has a lot of points to make. So definitely check it out. And why don't we bring in our next guest? She is the main person behind a new project bringing comics journalism to the masses. Tiffany Babb, welcome to the show. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for chatting about this. So I didn't actually say the name of the project. It's the Comics Courier, and it's on Kickstarter right now. And as
you're killing it.
You are killing it. As of this recording, seems like people do want comics journalism. On a goal of $4,500, you are up to over $12,000 with 16 days to go. That rules. Does that relieve any of the pressure at all?
Oh,
or does it amp up the pressure?
No, it's
more
great.
Like, oh,
it's
God,
great.
we got to deliver this thing.
I mean, worrying about delivering is much better than worrying about like falling flat on your face in front of everyone. So thank you everyone for your support. It's been really incredible to have kind of not just the funding response and the financial response, but everyone seems really excited about the project, which for me as a comics critic who's been doing this for a bit, it's good to hear that people care about this sort of stuff. You start to feel like, oh, you know, things go out into the ether and who's reading it and whatever, and things are shutting down, but then people are excited, which is good.
Well, let's take that back then a little bit, because you've worked at a bunch of different places, like you said, as a comics critic, as a writer, as a journalist. So you're probably aware that comics does not pay a lot of cash all the time. And there's
Really? What?
I know this is a shocker, and there's not a huge amount of people that are necessarily reading this stuff, despite what I think people on the outside might necessarily think. So knowing that, taking a leap to then creating your own physical newspaper that you're going to be delivering, what led to that decision?
Well, I think that reality really shaped the scope of the project, right? I'm not going to like Penguin knocking on their door and saying, hey, I've got this great idea. We're going to all be millionaires off comics criticism. It's a pre-order program, right? We're going directly to readers and saying, hey, this project is going to be cool. I'm very happy about the extra money, but at the very least, I could have done it with $4,500, right? And got people paid and got the prints out and everything done. So like the fact that we have a smaller readership, a smaller industry that doesn't have a lot of money in it, that's kind of why I'm doing it like DIY, right? It's really just like I'm laying this thing out myself, and I mean, it's gonna look great. It's gonna look great. I promise it will. But like, wow, designers have a hard job. Every day I'm just like, wow, this is tough.
Yeah.
Well, this is very exciting because when I saw the video and read up on it, it just kind of reminded me of a happy time when I would get like comic news, the kind of like old school newspaper, and then the Wizard magazine, where you know you're going to be covering a lot of different stuff. So I'm very excited to read it, and yeah, I think it's just such a great idea, and you're tackling something where people who read comics have a want for something like this.
I hope so.
Well, let's talk to us about the project a little bit. Again, if people are watching live on video, you can see a bunch of the different collaborators you have here. But tell us what the general idea of Comics Courier is. What makes it different as a piece of comics journalism?
Yeah, so it's going to be a tabloid-sized newspaper that comes out twice a year. There's going to be long-form criticism as well as reviews. So there's going to be a nice balance between both. And really, what sets it apart from other projects that you see, which there's a lot of really great comics criticism out there. But what sets this apart is that we're not going after clicks. And so we don't have to cater to the discourse, right? We don't have to cater to the hot comic of the week. So I got to, email a bunch of writers who I really respect and love and say, hey, what do you want to write about? Like, what is no one paying you to write about? And we've got weird books. Like, people are writing about really weird comics. Dave Baker's writing about John Byrne's picture Fumetti Star Trek comics. And I'm just like, well, there you go. That's exactly what I want, right? I want the kind of writing that we're not seeing elsewhere. And just by the nature of the project, getting crowdfunding lets us make the decisions on what's going to go in the paper.
So the question becomes for me a little bit of, what do you look for in a comic? What are some things that you like about comics that kind of makes you want to kind of write about it and talk about them?
Ooh, big question. What draws me to a comic? I don't know. Like, it's good comics are good.
Nice.
I mean,
Okay.
I try to read as broadly as I can. I tend to read mostly American stuff. I'm not very well versed on manga, although I did just read Tuttle sent me some stuff that was kind of interesting.
Cool.
But I think I just, find things when people recommend them. I like to go to the library, and I like to just go to the graphic novel section, pull things out. I think that's such a great way to find stuff, because we're so kind of algorithm based now. So you end up reading a bunch of the stuff that your friends are reading, which is also great because you can talk about it. But you're not kind of making those weird discoveries of that book that came out 8 years ago and no one read at the time, but is actually really good.
Why? I mean, I think you touched on this a little bit, but why a newspaper instead of a website?
Well, I think it's interesting to have something that you can hold. I think this is also something that's sparking in people's reaction to the project. It's like, I like to read paper books. I'm on my computer, I'm on my phone 24/7. Like I'd like to step away from the screens at least for an hour a day to read something, right? So because I like to read on print, like, it makes sense to want to create something that's in print. And newspapers are really cool, and they have a really cool aesthetic. And they're I keep joking about this, but I'm also slightly serious about just there's a structure to newspapers that I can steal design wise. I'm like, I can handle laying out a newspaper. I don't think I could handle laying out a beautiful magazine like Haas did with panel by panel. But I can do a newspaper. And it's just fun. I mean, I get the newspaper, the print newspaper, my local paper every week, sit down, I read it. It's just a good experience.
Yeah. Are you going to, since it is a newspaper, is Family Circle going to be in it? Because I only buy the newspaper with Family Circle in it.
You know, I should do like I was thinking about doing parody ads and stuff. I think that'd be really fun.
Now, are you going to get like a van and drive around and throw the newspapers so they land
I
on their
literally
doorsteps?
was having a conversation. Someone was like, you should dress up as a newsie.
Oh, that'd be
With
so
a
much
little
fun.
hat, right?
That's great. They're different projects, but it was interesting to see your project, Comics Courier, pop up at the same time as Chip Zdarsky started doing Chip Zdarsky, I think he calls it Comic Book News or something, whatever, his leaflet, his little magazine thing that he's putting in comic book shops. And then you've also got James Tynion just announced that Tiny Onion is also putting out a physical pamphlet as well. Why do you think that's happening now? I mean, maybe it's a newspaper boom.
It's the future of comics, but it's like, it's responding to the same instinct, right? With the destruction of Twitter, the way that people find books has completely changed. Kieran Gillen writes about this in his newsletter a lot, and it's just, you can't get to the audience. People want to find the books and they cannot find them anymore. They want to find the interesting writing and they can't find it. And I think a newspaper is kind of one of the obvious ways to go at it. Something print, with Chip Zdarsky's thing, like, you know, you go to the comic shop and you pick one up in your hands for free, and it has info in it, and it's info that you want, right? And I think it's not only a way of like setting the projects apart from other projects, but it's just right now it seems like the only logical way to get information out, which seems ridiculous, but the way the internet is right now, that's what it is.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about some of the bonuses or the things that you get for pledging the different levels. So obviously you can get the paper, which is great, but to jump all the way ahead to, I believe it's the $50 level, you can get like a little reporter notebook that says Comics Courier. That's awesome. That's my question, is that's awesome? It is.
Thank you. When I came up with the idea, I was like, I might be the only one who's really excited about it, but it's worth it anyway. And so far people have been really excited about it. So I feel very justified in like doing custom Comics Courier reporters notebooks. But I'm like, it's fun, right? It's a fun, cool thing to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have the first issue. Obviously, this is like very cart before the horse question here. But now that you do have this extra funding, are you already starting to think ahead to issue 2, issue 3, or is that too soon to talk about? At this point?
Am, just because it's really not that far away, like 6 months. So every 6 months for the paper to come out means every 6 months a Kickstarter, right? And Kickstarter, like the Kickstarter work is a lot more intense than the newspaper work. Like, I've been an editor for years. I can put together a newspaper. The layout's tricky, but the actual stuff is like, I do that every day. But putting the Kickstarter together and getting the projects and finding people to pitch and all this stuff, I am thinking about the second one a lot.
Yeah. Well, sorry for putting pressure on you right now. I wanted to ask you about like plugging any other things and anything else you want to talk, but in a little bit of a kismet, we have another guest on the show today. This is you. She knows about this, by the way. This is not like we have a guest behind the curtain. It's your dad. You haven't seen him in 20 years. No, this is Tim Leong, who's been on the show before, but not for many years. He has a new book out called Marvel Super Graphic, A Visual Guide to the Marvel Comics Universe, which we'll talk to him about in a second. But the reason I wanted to bring in Tim now is because we had him on back in the day. This is many years ago now. He did what I would say was like one of the last comic book magazines from that boom, Comics Foundry. So I'm going to bring in Tim now. Hey, Tim, welcome. Good to see you again. We're going to have like a little crossover episode here. So the reason I wanted to bring you in is I thought it would be interesting to hear from both of you in terms of, I mean, not to be like, can you give some advice to Tiffany? But why do you think things sort of imploded a little bit at the end of Comics Foundry? Obviously, part of that was your life changing, you moving away, etc. But it very much coincided with the time when that part of comics for journalism was changing, and then segueing into what do you think is changing now?
First off, hi, hello. I think it's a great question. I think the end of Comic Foundry, which was around 2006 or so, I think a lot of print publications were starting to drop off, costs going up, but also just the internet and internet journalism, launching right around then. And so it was like easier than ever to do a lot of that great content online. And there was so many great sites doing great work. So yeah, I think those two things kind of hit right at the same time.
Yeah. Tiffany, did you look to anything like, not to put you on the spot here, but did you look to anything like Comics Foundry or other publications to figure out? No.
Tim and I have talked about it a little. We talked. Okay. We were. Gosh, when was that? Just a few months ago. When this was.
It was just a couple months ago, but it feels like a couple years ago.
It feels like God. It feels ages. But no, Tim gave me good advice. But I like the big thing that I've been stealing from is the Brian Canini and team have the Columbus Scribbler out in Columbus, and they put out this newspaper, I think 4 times a year. It's all comics, some of it's interviews, but it's mostly actually just comics. And when I first met him, and I was like, you put out a newspaper? And I think that was like the seed that I was like, oh, I'm stealing that idea for someday down the line. But I mean, I'm looking at a lot of stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of crossover with Panel by Panel. Haas is on the book, on the newspaper. It's been helping me a lot with the design stuff. And we have some of the same writers, so kind of the same vibe, but also different. But yeah, I mean, I've been reading kind of everything I can get my hands on really at this point.
Yeah. And Tim, seeing the success of things like Comics Courier on Kickstarter, does that give you the itch to go back to Comics Foundry at all? Or is that far too far in the past?
No, I mean, I am like 10% jealous of Tiffany. It just looks so cool. Probably more than 10%. It's probably a lot more than 10%.
You should come. We should work on this. You should.
Yeah, come on.
Do it.
Jump in. The water's fine.
It's so cool. I'm super jealous because it's such a fun project, and having it twice a year and not kind of like an overwhelming cadence. It's not like trying to be a weekly newspaper. It seems manageable. I love it, and there's not anyone doing anything else like it right now. And also, like, newspapers are just so great, right? Like, I really, comics are digital now. There's digital comics, but I always, harken back to like physical media, and newspaper is physical. It's like it's interactive, right? Because like it bends and changes and evolves as you read it. You like fold it over, you can flip it over, and you're folding. It's supposed to be. It's not precious, and that's what I really like about it too. There's like so much potential for what they can do, and I'm super psyched to see what happens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Tiffany, just before we wrap up here, you're still gonna have room for like ranking the hottest comic book writers and things like that, like they did in Wizard back in the day. Yeah?
Yes, obviously.
Okay. Whew. All right, good. Then I'm picking up a copy.
Oh boy.
Anything else you want to plug before we let you go?
Gosh, obviously comicscourier.com. The campaign is ending October 31st. Easy to remember, it's Halloween. And you can go to my website if you want to sign up for my newsletter. It has all of my like new publications whenever I have new stuff out. And my website's just tiffanybabb.com.
Awesome.
All
Tiffany,
right.
congratulations. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see a copy in the flesh. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great night. All right, there we go. Just to plug that really quick before we officially chat with you, Tim, everybody should check out Comics Courier on Kickstarter right now. As she mentioned, it's until Halloween, so check it out. And now, Tim, officially welcome. Thank you for coming in a
Welcome
little
back.
early. So
Thank
good
you.
to see you
Thank
again after so long. But like we mentioned earlier, you got a new book out from Chronicle Books called Marvel Super Graphic, a visual guide to the Marvel Comics universe. This is great and
you.
sort of insane at the same time. And I say insane in terms of
Yeah.
like, I can't wrap my brain around how you actually put this together, even
Same.
knowing how incredible you are at graphics and everything.
I would say
But-
it's like a beautiful evil genius made this. Like some of these pages are just mind blowing, really impressive.
So
It's very
this
much
is-
like the Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme, string on the cork board.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is graphic representations of different parts of the Marvel universe, some of them incredibly niche and specific, some of them a little broader, but they all present them in ways that I think you wouldn't necessarily expect. Like this isn't like just simple charts and graphs, it mixes it up a little bit. So again, I know you're very graphic minded and you always have been, but where did this start? Did this start with like doing little sketches and doodles of these kind of things and expanded from there? Or how did this actually become a book?
Well, this is my third super graphic book with Chronicle. The first one came out in 2013, and it was just kind of all comics, Marvel DC, indie, manga, everything. And then I also did a Star Wars super graphic in 2016 with Chronicle. And so I had a couple of them. I had an on ramp with these, and trying to figure out how to do some of these charts. But it kind of just started with like what I was interested in, and kind of just like before doing extra research, it's like just sitting down, it's like what came to mind of like what could be fun, and just like honestly what interests me. Because if I feel like I'm having fun doing it and it really interests me, I think it has a greater chance of someone else being interested in it. And then after that, kind of went through and just like, well, what am I missing? What am I not? Who's not covered? What are the big titles not covered? What do people want to know about? And how can I kind of help people discover more books and more characters? Because for me, like, this, I feel like a lot of this all goes back to the Marvel Universe trading cards for me. I don't know if you guys were like big trading card guys, right? But like, in the like 90s, they had these Marvel Universe trading cards. They were fantastic. And on the backs of them, they had like these power rankings. And it's like Captain America's strength is a 6 and his speed is a 4. I don't know. But
That's
was
not
really-
accurate. What are you talking about? He's stronger and fat. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
But that data, that was my first real introduction to comic book data. And it also maybe those cards were kind of like a whole smattering of just like random people as well. Like you had the big highlights, but also just like some strange people. I was like, I don't know who that person is. I need to check that out. Or it's like, I've never heard of this storyline. I need to check that out. And that's kind of what I wanted the book to be as well, right? Like have it be a guide for someone that could have read comics their whole life, but also someone that just picked up, that saw the new Marvel movie and wanted to check something out, and they haven't really read comics before. So kind of create a visual guide for anyone to kind of basically to take your hand through the Marvel universe and kind of show you all the cool stuff you can check out.
Yeah.
There so many different types of graphs and charts here. Maybe it's just an intuitive thing, but how do you actually break it down? How do you say like, okay, this is going to be a bar graph, this is going to be a chart, this is going to be something entirely different than that?
It kind of just depends on the data. For something like the one you were just on, one thing that we do different this time is I took a bunch of just like iconic storylines from Marvel history that I think people should check out, and they kind of did a deep dive and kind of broke those down. So like Days of Future Past is one. But it would kind of just depend. It's a real gut check. And typically, if I can't figure it out pretty quickly, then I'm not going to. And sometimes, you have a great idea. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this idea. And then you do the research, and then I just can't. The design doesn't work. The chart doesn't work. And it's like, well, that was a bit of a waste. Or sometimes I have a great, design, but like the data doesn't support it. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't work either. So sometimes there is a lot of like dead work that kind of goes into it, because the only way to really know is to do it. And then you do it, and you're like, oh, that was a waste. But now we know.
Well, when you're, I think I know the answer from having read through the book, but when you're saying data, what exactly are you talking about there?
It's a lot of just like flipping through, and I try to get ideas from online sources, but like, you really have to go back to the books and like flip through everything, and got that Marvel subscription, and just did a lot of reading online.
Yeah. So just to clarify, the data, when we're talking about that, it's not just like pure numbers or anything like that. We're talking about characters, storylines, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So it's like, if you want to know how many times Cyclops failed as a leader, you could have that charted out.
Pete,
that's the expanded edition.
That'll take at least 50 extra pages. Was there one in here that was particularly difficult to crack? Something that made it, but that was the one that was just had you sweating extra time?
There's one that it's like the breakdown of all the spider characters in different multiverses, and that was hard just because, one, the design was kind of tricky, but also there's just so many, like I couldn't fit them all in. So trying to figure out and kind of play favorites of which one can fit in here. And also everything was like run through Marvel as well, since it's an officially licensed book. And so they had, suggestions of who to put in there and who not to include, and how to try to, it's just trying to, there's too many cool spider characters, is the real problem.
Yeah. Now that you have tackled so many different parts of the world, like you were saying, do you feel like there's more to say about Marvel, or at this point is this kind of captured everything that you say and you kind of move on to DC or something like that?
Well, I think the cool thing about Marvel is that it just keeps going, right?
Yeah.
Like there's always going to be something extra to say. Whether that, I don't think that's going to be another edition, but I think there's always something more to say. And I feel like I'm someone who's read a lot of Marvel comics, and even here, I was just like, wow, there's so much that I didn't know, which was kind of fun. It's kind of, it's, I don't know, it's pretty cool that like, and I'm sure this is good for you guys too, right? Like you're reading comics all the time. You've been reading comics for a very long time. It's still pretty cool when you can be surprised and kind of find something new.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, this works great as a art book, as like a coffee table book, but reading through this, I couldn't help but think it was like a bunch of posters. Have you talked about that at all? Like making any of them poster size that you could sell that way? Is that a lucrative market?
Have you thought about posters, Tim?
I haven't yet.
Think about dorm rooms with some cool graphs in there.
I'm just saying.
I was kind of just trying to redecorate my office lately, and I was just like, man, when I was a kid, there were just so many cool comic posters at the local comic shop. And I was just like, I really wish I missed that. I miss you just walk down to the comic store and get like these cool door length posters.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time thumbing through giant posters.
They actually have
giant,
one,
like swinging thing.
At my local comic shop, they have one, but it's in a very weird place. Like it's on the floor, and you have to stand 5 feet from the door to rifle through the posters. So you just have to, like, the second anybody comes in, you're like, oh, don't look at me. I'm just looking at posters. Don't
look at me. Don't make eye contact. I'm looking at posters.
Anyway, make these into posters is, I guess, what I'm saying. Now that you do have this, though, are you looking forward to the next one? I guess I don't know how time intense these are in terms
They're
of...
pretty intense. Because
it seems like it.
It's not just writing. It's like the writing and the design and the research. So it's very all-encompassing, and I'm still kind of coming off this one, so I have not thought to entertain any future things yet, but yes, they're fun to do, but also fun not to do. once you've stopped.
Well, they're
Once you-
fun to look at, that's for sure, and to kind of think about things and the way they're laid out. So, congratulations. This is really cool.
Oh, we got a question here from the comments from Schleichler. When will we get graphics she wrote? Are you going to do a murder she wrote super graphic at any point?
That would be a pretty cool one. That'd be pretty cool. I like that. I might be open to that.
All right.
Look at this. Thank you. This is a great suggestion.
Yeah, I'd love to know how many cases she's solved. You know what I mean? Like the total numbers. That would be fun to see.
Yeah. Anything else you want to plug before we let you go, Tim?
That's it for now. Makes a great gift for the holidays. Holidays coming up.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Tim, great seeing you again after so long. Thanks for hopping in a little early as
great
well.
seeing you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great
Happy
night.
birthday, Justin.
Oh, yes. Of course.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
All right. Bye, Tim. All right, there we go. The book is called Marvel Super Graphic, a visual guide to the Marvel Comics universe. You can check it out everywhere now from Chronicle.
He does great stuff, man. I love his
Great
stuff.
He has done great stuff for years, and
He sure has,
to do
yeah.
great stuff. All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It is your audience questions.
Oh, boy.
And for audience questions, all you got to do is drop a question in the comments. Can be about absolutely anything. You drop it on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Those are 3 places. There you go. Pete, what you drinking tonight? What's going on?
I don't have a garage, but I'm drinking garage beer. You know what I mean?
Nice. Excellent. And Brett Macris, Stray Bullet, our chef, called for beer tonight. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Are you still drinking water?
Still on the souse.
Yeah, just straight vodka, man. All
Woo!
right. Yeah, good for
Woo!
you.
Spiking
You got to
it.
start making your own moonshine. No one will be able to tell. It's just clear.
All right, why don't we get to some questions here? Ooh, we got one, 2 from Leah Love. She says, with Riverdale ending a year ago, will you be doing a retrospective of the show?
Oh, man, that's a fun idea.
Whew.
You think you could go back and relive it?
I will tell you, I didn't even tell you this, Pete, but I did a couple of months back reach out to a couple of people to see if we could set something up for the end of the show, but I think it was a little early for them to talk, is the thing. So hopefully, I would love to do that. I've mentioned this before, but in the back of my head, I would still love to do a Riverdale Roulette podcast where we have on a guest and generate a random number between, I'm blanking on how many episodes, 156, something like that, 1 and 156. So they've never seen Riverdale before. We generate a random episode for them to watch. They watch the episode and then come on the show and we talk about it.
Oh, wow. The way you set that up, I thought someone was going to get shot in the head, but nobody.
Yeah, and then we shoot them in the head.
All right. Okay. Good. There
Because it's Riverdale, man. Come on.
Right. Exactly.
Have you forgotten how the show works?
Yeah. I want to see
Anyway,
blind babies.
To answer your question, I would love to do some more stuff on Riverdale. I miss talking about it. Also, I love you, Pete. You're the best. But to quote Taylor
Right back
Swift,
at you, Leah Love. Come on.
Bughead was never, ever, ever getting back together. Jeronica forever.
What happened, Leah? We were doing so well, and then you had to stab me in the back at the end of the sentence. Oh, man.
Can't believe they pulled out Jeronica right there at the end. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff for other
Feels
people.
good to talk about it again, though.
Does it?
It does.
I got my palms are sweaty. I'm like, oh, no.
Oh, no. What am I saying?
Bughead. Oh, I miss you so much. It was simpler times.
We were younger then. You were raised by Bughead, if I remember.
Yeah, it's great. I had forgotten about that.
I forgot nothing.
Oh, man.
All right, this is from Dow. Thoughts on Heavy Metal Magazine returning again, supposedly. This was announced earlier today, actually. To be full disclosure, I didn't have a chance to read the news report about it. But yeah, they're
journalist are
apparently
you?
a bad one that was writing up 50 stories today because we're pre-New York Comic Con and there's already too much news coming out and I'm dying. I am dying.
Wow, man.
But
No wonder you're drinking.
But yeah, they're going to be talking more about this in New York Comic Con. That's why they announced it now. But yeah, Heavy Metal Magazine is supposed to be returning for like the, like Dow's joking about here, I don't know, 4th, 5th time, something like that. What do you think, Pete? Is this going to be the time that sticks?
I don't know. I mean, you know, it's definitely a thing. It was a huge popular thing. I mean, there was a movie made, the graphic novels were cool and weird and fun. It kind of, to me, had that kind of liquid TV, remember that kind of vibe to it, which is you didn't know what was going to happen, when you opened up a heavy metal magazine, and there were always some cool things. So, it'll be interesting. I don't know. We're getting, maybe with our last guest talking about bringing back newspapers, and now we're bringing back heavy metal magazine. It's real. Next is 8-tracks. Come on.
Well, so this is going to sound very dumb when I say it, but if things are good, they're good. So if it comes out and it's a good bunch of comics or stories or however they want to do it, awesome. That's great. But to the point that you're saying about it being back in the day, I do think a lot of what Heavy Metal Magazine has leaked into pop culture, comics as a whole. So obviously I'm not behind it, but I don't know what you do at this point to put out Heavy Metal Magazine and give it that same sort of whoa, what feeling. Like if MTV, I think they actually did decide to bring back liquid television at one point, and nobody watched it and nobody cared, because that had already become everything else. You are influential, you make an impact, and then people pick up that ball and they run with it. So I don't know. Again, that's why I said what I said at the beginning. If it's good, that's great. But I'm just not sure how you make Heavy Metal Magazine what it was when it first came out.
Well, obviously you don't do what it was, but, try to find something new to kind of tap into.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Maybe it'll be great.
Maybe it'll be great. Schleichler says, were your favorite print newspapers and or magazines?
Oh, there was a ton of great stuff. Mad Magazine, Cracked Magazine for me.
It's funny you thought of that.
The Onion.
I was going to go to
Dig in Boston was like a cool kind of magazine. Village Voice.
I was definitely going to say Village Voice. That was a absolute pleasure to pick up
you had your ads in the back that you would place.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Wait, no. Oh, I see what you're saying. I didn't do that. I did ads sometimes for theatrical shows. Pete.
Oh, I got you. That was good.
Yeah, you really
that was good.
But I love the Village Voice back in the day. And The Onion, they're doing a print version again now that they have new owners, which is awesome. Speaking of the whole heavy metal thing, similarly, I don't think it's the same thing in terms of I loved searching out the Onion news box in Manhattan.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Being the new issue is here. Getting copies for everybody.
Hoping when you open it didn't smell like piss, like someone had just, yeah.
Yeah, and then after I closed it, it did smell like piss. You know what I'm talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
Here we go. Anyway, yeah, Village Voice and The Onion are the place.
Time Out in New York, I don't know if that's
Time
still
Out New York.
Yeah.
It's
we were written up in there
definitely
a couple
online.
times.
I don't think they distribute it anywhere. Nat Townsend says, I've never seen Riverdale. Can I be a guest on that show? Absolutely, Nat. We will have you on.
Oh, that'd be fun.
For sure.
Let's give the people what they want. People want
Nat
more
also says,
involved.
My friend Dave Kelly is an editor on Heavy Metal. Okay, Nat, have him
now he's just bragging. All right, Nat, congratulations. I mean, I'm glad you have friends. What are we doing right now?
Yeah, if anybody else has friends, just shout it out.
Just
in the comments.
put them in the
comments.
comments.
In the comments. All your friends.
I mean? Come on. Let's just turn this into reading names. Is what I love to do.
Oh my God, it's your favorite. Nelson Kelso says, "What are your favorite shows or movies you just happened to watch this month and really enjoyed, new or old?"
I'm trying. Because I can just hear Justin's voice in my head being like, don't say that, you basic bitch. Don't say that. So I'm trying not to.
I mean, I've talked about this on our Week in Geek podcast a bunch, but I semi-randomly started watching Mr. Robot again, a show that
you go hard on that show.
I do. And I know what its faults are, but I started thinking about the last season, which I will go to bat for as one of the best TV seasons of all times, that also mostly nobody watched because everybody was off the show by that point. But I started watching it again. Before they took it off Prime Video, I mostly made it through the second season. And it still has its faults, but the stuff that is good is so good. And it was so great to go back and watch it after watching the entire run, because the stuff that happens early on is so much richer because they loop back to it by the end of the show. So great show. I highly encourage anybody who happens to want to, because everybody I've mentioned this to, when I've been like, I started watching Mr. Robot again, to a person, they're like, oh, I stopped watching during season 2. Like and I don't blame you, because season 2 is not good, but highly encourage you to go back, power through if you can, because the first season, really good. Fourth season, phenomenal.
Oh man, I'm kind of opening up, going through history here to see what I've been doing with my time, because people ask me stuff and then I totally blank. Oh man, no, that's all stupid. I mean, we're talking about this, but I've really been enjoying the Slow Horses and Bad Monkey. That kind of new stuff, old stuff that I've been going through. I've been on a weird Schwarzenegger kick where I've been watching like the Conan movies for some reason. I've just been in a mood where it's like, I want to see
the
Conan.
Ones where he travels around the world and visits a different place each episode. The one on Max.
No, I'm talking about the movie Conan, where
where Conan travels the world and he has like his big red hair and he's sort of flopping around a little bit. That's what you're talking about, right?
No,
the one's on Max.
Not that one. Where
he's like a barbarian in a strange land, that sort of thing.
Are you having fun?
I'm having a great time.
Glad to hear it.
All right. Straight Bullet says, is there a show or a genre that you guys have wanted to do a podcast about, but it was canceled or too far along to start?
Ooh.
I don't know that we wanted to do this. I mean, I've certainly kept up with the show, but whenever we get asked a variation of this question, Justin will always bring up Walking Dead as something that, I don't know, I feel like we probably should have done if we were doing TV recap podcasts at that point, which we weren't.
Yeah, we weren't yet.
But we'd be hundreds of episodes into that at this point, and I'd be happy. I still watch those shows, but yeah, there was that, and... Gosh, I don't know. I feel like there.
Oh, I wanted to go and I want to do this, and I don't want to do this. I want to do Batman the Animated Series.
Ooh, yeah.
Go back and do that, but it's also so precious to me that I feel like I would get into a lot of fights because you or Justin would just say something and I would lose.
No, Justin loves that show.
Yeah, I know, but it's also like I have it in too high regard for to have a discussion where somebody might be like, "Oh, I didn't like this one frame." I'd be like, "Oh, fucking dare you!" So yeah,
we did talk about doing X-Men the Animated Series before X-Men '97, and then kind of ran out of time there to do it. That would have been a fun one as well.
Yeah. And, also, Mask of the Phantasm is just for me like one of the better.
Also, Arrowverse stuff. We did Stargirl.
Don't play with my emotions.
No, we had talked about that.
But there were too many episodes. Say Arrow, because I love that show, and you guys refused to talk about it. No, not just Arrow,
but like we talked about it, and it was just a schedule thing of like, at that point, there would be zero way that we would have been able to keep up with that many episodes of TV shows. So
yeah, Arrow,
that would have been a good one to do, but there you go. Easy Reader says, have you watched the Casa Bonita documentary? I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I assume it's the South Park Casa Bonita thing.
Almost definitely not.
Wow. Well, it could be.
Yeah, anything could be anything.
I saw the Will Ferrell doc. I thought that was good.
Oh, was that good? The one where he travels with his trans friend across the country?
That's the one.
Yeah. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Michael T says, do you guys watch out for original art sales? Absolute Batman sold fast and apparently setting records for original modern comic art with that specific art dealer, I think. Yeah, I think it was pretty much every page of Nick Dragotta's original art sold out immediately, which is wild. I don't watch that. That is a little too rich for my blood, but that's very cool. I mean, Nick Dragotta's art in that first issue is out of this world.
Yeah. Hang on, Nat's losing his mind. Yes, I know the South Park guys bought Casa Bonita and refurbished it. That's what I was talking about.
All right. I don't know what you're talking about. This is from Pablo D. Martinez. Did you guys get a look at crypto yet? Thoughts? I've been heavily investing in crypto, if that's what you're asking about.
You have a
Fingers crossed.
family, Alex. You can't be gambling your future like this.
That and NFTs. I really think they're going to pan out.
Oh, my God.
I think they're going to work. No, James Gunn posted the first look at Crypto the Super Dog today on his social media accounts, confirming that it was based on his own dog, Ozu, I believe is the name of the dog. And his idea, apparently Crypto was not in the original drafts of his Superman movie. And then he got the dog, and the dog apparently, who they love, is the sort of dog that's like very wild and tears up the entire house. And so he was thinking, what would that do to Superman if you had a dog like that with superpowers? And he got really enamored of the idea. And now Crypto is in Superman. So there you go. Looks great. Can't wait.
Fun.
Nelson Kelso says, I'm coincidentally rewatching Mr. Robot and I'm up to season 2. I will power through. Yes, definitely do. I'm watching it. I was like, still not good. Pablo says, how's everyone's reaction to Agatha all along? Great way of plugging Marvel Vision, our Marvel podcast where we talk about Agatha every single week.
Thanks for the plug, Pablo. Really set us up for that.
Yeah,
I'm excited to talk to you and we can geek about the episode that I missed when I was on my work trip, because that really dropped a bomb at the end there where I said, oh shit, out loud a couple times.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk about that some more. But yeah, everybody check out Marvel Vision. Stray Bullet says
it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
And also just a little plug for Marvel Vision as well. Pete and I, not for Justin's birthday, but we talked to Joanna Robinson and Dave Gonzalez, 2 of the 3 authors of MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios, about their book, which is in paperback now. That is out in the Marvel Vision feed. Great chat. They're obviously veteran podcasters and super knowledgeable about the whole MCU. So really good conversation, fun interview with them about that with some good insight into the whole MCU and the behind the scenes. Stray Bullet says, did you guys watch Chaos? I loved it. And how do you feel about it getting canceled so quickly? It was the Jeff Goldblum show that was on Netflix about Greek gods. I did not watch it. My wife watched it and enjoyed it. It's too bad, but the viewers weren't there.
Well, now that Stray says he likes it, maybe I'll check it out, but sorry to hear it got canceled.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is it for your audience questions. We're going to move on with our next section, which is trivia. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Peter LePage.
All right. This is the part we give back to you, the lovely audience. It's an opportunity to win $25 free in the form of a gift card to Midtown Comics. But if you had $25, you go to a comic book shop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I'd go. If I had $25, I'd probably buy some crypto.
See, this is what I'm worried about, man. Mm-hmm. This is really what I've been
we have a
about.
bunch of people. Nat Townsend says Peter. Pablo says hand up guy here.
Oh, first hand up guy?
Yeah, he was first hand up guy. I don't know. Whoever you want to choose, Pete.
Well, geez, I mean, who hasn't done it in a while? Has Pablo done it in a minute? Because Nat is technically first. He said Peter.
Mm-hmm. But he just said Peter, which isn't...
Oh, maybe he was yelling at me about something, you know?
Maybe. Give it to Pablo.
All right, let's bring in Pablo. Let's do it with the Pobs.
All right, the Pobs, you are up. Drop your answers in the comments. And Pete, take it away.
All right, today's trivia is about the impressive comic book series Gray Hulk, or Hulk Gray, and a small nod to the legend John Amos, R.I.P. Mr. McDowell. Please listen to all 3 options before making your selection. Question number 1. This amazing artist on this comic book is from Ithaca, New York. Who is it? Is it A, Tim Sale, B, William, wipe that smirk off your face, or C, Bill Smiley?
Pete.
I didn't know Tim Sale is from Ithaca. I thought that was
neither
cool.
did I. I feel like we would have talked about that a lot more.
Yeah.
Now we're never going to stop talking about that.
Yeah, I was like, man, I blew it. I got to meet him. I didn't even bring that up.
Oh, man. You didn't give him the secret Ithaca is gorgeous hat.
That's right. Yeah, show off my T-shirt, matching tattoo. Pablo, you are correct. It is A. All right, here we go. Question number 2. What is another name for the Gray Hulk? Is it A, Jeff Loeb, B, Joe Fixit, or C, Reggie Luck?
Reggie Luck?
Yeah.
Wait, your first one was Jeff Loeb?
Yeah.
Interesting.
You know, that way people say, oh, it's all A answers.
You're shaking it up. I mean,
Yeah.
you just gave away what the answer is. B, Pablo says.
B is correct. I mean, if you didn't know that, I mean, come on.
Come on.
All right, here we go. Question number 3. Name another main character from the book. Is it A, Leonard Sampson, B, you're just a dick in charge of a college, C, Dean Ween?
Wow. Good use of Ween, Pete.
Thanks, man.
No problem. See if Pablo gets this one right.
I hope so.
There's the prize.
I
hope
believe
he
in
gets
Pablo.
it.
Hey, it's correct.
Hey, congratulations, Pablo.
Oh, man,
You have
Pablo.
won a $25 gift card to Midtown Comics. Shoot us an email and we will get that to you. And Pete, what is the secret movie you are hinting at?
Of course, we're talking about the 1990 hit Die Hard 2. You know what I mean?
We are. Of course.
Yeah.
I knew that. You didn't need to specify that.
Yeah, yeah. Also, what's great is, you know, I've seen Pablo at Midtown Comics. I know he cashes in these sweet gift cards. So it's nice that, you know, people are out there using them.
Totally. Now, before we get to our final section, there was something that I forgot to mention earlier. We have a faithful listener named Thor Axdal who shot us an email that I just wanted to throw out there. I hope he doesn't mind me reading it because I thought this was a really neat project, not necessarily related to comics, more related to comedy, but he says, I am a comedian in Olympia, Washington. I'm starting a new ongoing show at the Tacoma Comedy Club titled Good Felons. The purpose of the show is to shed light on life after conviction and for comics who have had run-ins with the law to share their stories. My goal is to fight the stigma of a criminal past that follows a lot of us in this country. Much like the series of Batman stories, we're all one bad moment away from finding out what it's like on the other side. I myself am a felon and have lived with that for 16 years. I do not fit the bill of what is usually considered an ex-con, and it often leaves people not believing me when I tell them. So yeah, giving a shout out to his show. If you're curious to check it out and live in the area, it's going to be on November 3rd at 7 p.m. at the Tacoma Comedy Club at the 6th location. I don't know what that means, but you can check it out at tacomacomedyclub.com/shows/284865. Maybe just go to Tacoma Comedy Club and look for Good Felons and you'll figure it out from there. But I thought it was a pretty neat show. And he says, and this is really interesting, he ends after mentioning this really great project. He has a little PS here where Thor says, Frankencastle wasn't that bad.
See, that's, you know, because I read the email that you sent out and I was like, man, I was with this guy. And then he adds the PS and I'm like, well, you know, you lost me. You know, I was with you. I wanted to support your cause, you know, but now how can you trust somebody like that? You know what I mean?
I don't know, man. But I guess you can find out if you check out Goodfellas at the Tacoma Comedy Club. Before we wrap up here, tons of new comic books coming out tomorrow. All of them great. But why don't we shout out a couple of them? Pete, what are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to Wonder Woman. Really fantastic issue, number 14. And then Daredevil Woman Without Fear, number 4. Also really love that one.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing what happens in both of those issues. A bunch of things that I'm excited about. Mystique, number 1 from Marvel. This is written and drawn by Declan Shalvey, and he has been on a roll lately. So excited to see what happens there. Covers look great. We'll see if the insides are great as well. Also, I did get an advanced look at a book called The Exorcism at 1600 Pen, number 1.
That sounds scary.
It comes out tomorrow. It is scary by Hannah Rose May with art by Vanessa Del Rey. And it's basically The Exorcist, but in the White House, per the name. Really terrifying family drama, so check that out. Also very excited about the end of... what are they calling it? I don't know. The big war crossover thing they've been doing in Radiant Black. They have 2 issues coming out tomorrow.
Gosh.
That whole
that
massive
should
verse
be
thing.
unbelievable.
Yeah, that should be unbelievable as well. And last thing I'll mention, because there's a crazy comic book day tomorrow, is Batman and Robin Year One, #1 from Mark Waid and Chris Sabney. So far, that team has not missed at all, ever. So could not be more excited about that. And all of those books and many, many more are going to be in our Stack podcast that comes out Wednesday, 9 a.m. in the dedicated Stack feed and also the Comic Book Club feed. And folks, that is it for this week's show. A couple of people we want to thank. We want to thank Tim Leong for coming on to talk about Marvel's Super Graphic. Check that out now from Chronicle Books. Also, Matt Bors for talking about Justice Warriors, Vote Harder, and Toxic Avenger, both from Ahoy. Tiffany Babb, the Comics Courier, on
can't
Kickstarter.
wait to get that newspaper
Until Halloween. Check that out. And next week, we're going to have another great shows for you. Brent Bristol is going to be here to talk about Ordeal, and Patrick McDonnell will be on to talk about Mutts. So check out both of those things. A couple of other things to plug on our end. Comic Book Club News, our daily news podcast, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. every single day of the week. Check that out. Also, Marvel Vision, as we mentioned earlier, a Marvel podcast. We're recapping Agatha every week, so you can check that one out. Sons of a Gun, our DC podcast, where we're talking about the Penguin right now, weekly as well. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club to support the show and all the shows we do. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Android, Spotify, or the app of your choice. At Comic Book Live on Twitter/X. Comic Book Club Live on Instagram and TikTok. ComicBookClubLive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, we'll see you at the Comic Book Club.
Yeah, take care of yourself out there.
And happy birthday, Justin. We got you a
Yay,
podcast.
JTC!
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you. Justin, you're old now.